Until I was 20, I believed melody, harmony, and rhythm to be wholly separate components of music. The interplay of these devices had yet to resonate with me, and harmony in particular eluded me. Traditional music theory led me to believe it was because there were a number of rules I hadn't yet learned or understood, when in reality, I had yet to realize the interconnected nature of music. I imagine Ornette Coleman struggled with the same dilemma because his concept of harmonics, introduced in the 1970s, is the necessary answer in my opinion. The concept aims at the musical sensation of unison, where harmony, melody, speed, rhythm, time, and phrases all have equal position in the results that come from placing and spacing of ideas. In traditional music theory courses, a musician learns 4-part voice leading and counterpoint. In jazz theory courses, a musician typically learns about harmonic cycles and substitutions. But in reality, the chords in a piece of music are never just the chords, but rather a piece of context alongside the melody, rhythm, and other musical components. When I began hearing and viewing composition this way, every musical moment started to feel like a seed that, if properly contextualized, could bloom into something magnificent. And the following practice approach is one pathway I found to the heart of that idea. Before I get too deep into this compositional approach, I do want to mention my Substack. Before this video essay existed, it was a written piece over on Substack. And my Substack writing includes all of the resources linked inline. It includes original diagrams and recordings, and they all come out before their video essays here. So if you enjoyed this kind of a piece, consider becoming a subscriber there. I have free and paid options, but both get access to everything because I don't want to paywall any of this, and I think it's cool that people do pay to help support my work and the community and whatnot, and I want to take a quick second to thank those people. For this exercise, you'd be best situated at a keyboard or a guitar and have something to write your ideas down on. Though I find it helpful, it doesn't need to be in standard notation, and in fact, I've taught many great lessons where I simply wrote out the chord voicings vertically, and you can cover the same information and ground in that fashion as well. Other than that, I would suggest setting a time limit heading into this. Maybe 20 to 25 minutes, and consider that your only expectation. You might even say to yourself, I am going to harmonize a melody for the next 20 minutes. You don't want to place too much importance on creating something good or even complete. Ultimately, you want to surrender yourself to the process and know that long-term this will elevate your creative chops. Now, here is how to carry out the approach. First, compose or choose a melody no more than 8 measures long. Second, determine what key or tonal center your melody is in. An optional step, map out the points of tension and resolution. If you need some guidance in that, you can ask yourself, where does it feel like the melody is moving, which I would say is tension, and where does it feel like it's landing, which I would say is release. You can mark these with like a T and an R in pencil, or you could color code them. Now that we're beginning to think about adding in other voices for our harmonization, I want you to consider your melody and your chords kind of like a choir. Now, a typical choir has a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and they make the musical unison of the choir, but they are their own distinct and separate voices. And that's sort of how tonal music is organized. And in particular, your soprano is going to be your melody, and your inner voices are going to be your harmony, and the bass voice is your root. Now, it doesn't need to be a 4-part or any specific number of parts. It's more so that it follows that framework of soprano is your melody, inner voices are your harmony, and bass is your root rather. The bass can be the root note of the chord, which would constitute a root position chord, but it could also be another chord tone, which would constitute an inversion. Step 4, use this framework. The note is the interval of chord. An example might help articulate that better. So C is the tonic of C major, or D is the major third of B flat, or F is the minor 7 of G minor 7. Step 5. Choose a chord for the first tone using the framework in step 4. Try out every option that you consider on your instrument to see what it sounds like. It doesn't matter what the chord is, if it looks predictable, or if it feels too simple. What matters is what it sounds like. If you opted for the earlier step of mapping out your tension and release, this is a good chance to consider if the chord choice that you are going with matches that moment in the melody. And this is something you have to just try out a bunch of options for to figure out, but I've often found that when you're going from tension to resolution, things like dominant chords and suspended chords go a long way in articulating that same kind of feeling that you'll find in the melody. And finally, step 6, document your choice. This could be, like I said, on sheet music or on like a whiteboard or a piece of paper. And you'll want to just do this to keep track of your ideas, because it sucks when you figure something really good out and you just forget it because you focus on something else for a minute. Once you document your choices, you're going to go back and do steps 4 and 5 for every successive note in the melody until you have a complete harmonization. And I would say to continue to play through the amount that you've done every single time to get a sense of the progression, how things move from one chord to the next. Where if you just start plunking in one chord for this note, one chord for this note, one chord for this note, it could quickly become very disjointed, and you want to think about the progression, how it moves from one end to another. So if you haven't figured it out yet, every interlude and the intro and outro in this video is an example of how you can use this exercise and what kind of result you could get, I suppose. But I wanted to take a chance to walk through it step by step and sort of explain rationale and various decision-making processes that happen within this exercise, and hopefully it will make this more practical, answer any questions that might have come up during the explainer part of this video. So yeah. Without further ado, I'm going to get into that. And in fact, I already kind of did, because my camera overheated a minute ago when I was in the middle of doing one of these takes. So my air conditioner is also on. I apologize if the ambient noise gets in the way, but I don't think it will. But all that to say, I already have a melody and a key. So I'm in the key of F, and this is the melody that I came up with. Now this is squarely in the key of F, there's no chromatic notes, none of that. So I'm gonna start with my first note, C, and find a chord that works for that. And since the melody is so in the key of F, I'm gonna start checking out diatonic options and then maybe consider some options outside of the key. Now, I'll narrate every step as I do it. But I suspect that once I keep kind of like going in the form, I will probably move a bit quicker, because once you already have a few chords, it begins to make more sense where you're heading, and your options become more limited for that reason. But it's kind of a good type of limited. It's sort of like chipping away at the marble to get the statue underneath. So I'm going to try out some options for the first note, which is C. I'm going to work diatonically first. So C is the 5th of our 1 chord, which is F major. C is the 11th of our 2 chord, which is G minor. It is the minor third of our 3 chord, which is A minor. It is the 9 of our 4 chord, which is B flat major. It is the root of our 5 chord, which is C or C7. It is the minor 7 of our 6th chord, which is D minor 7. I wouldn't use it over the 7th chord, E diminished, because that would just make it a C dominant chord. So yeah, it doesn't really work. Those are the options inside the key. I like a couple of them, but let's take a look at some options outside of the key for a second. So I'm going to go through the major chords it's in, the minor chords it's in, and the dominant chords that it's in. So C is obviously the root of C major. We already have that chord in F, so nothing new. It is, however, the major third of A flat major, which is outside of the key, so that's a new option we have. It's a pretty bold one at that. C is the 5th of F major, which again, that's our 1 chord, nothing new. But lastly, it is the major 7 of D flat or C sharp major 7, which is a pretty bold choice as well. I'm going to stop at the 7 for now because 9, 11, and 13s are great. They're really colorful tones, but it gets us a bit away from the atomic structure of our key, and it's something that requires a lot of experience and taste to use. Not to say that I don't have those things, I use those chords a lot, but for the sake of demonstrating, I'm going to keep it more inside the shapes that we're working in. So after kind of going through all those, I'm really hearing the G minor, because the G minor 11 is like a beautiful sound. It's in the key of F, so we still get that sense. Let's listen to the entire melody over that to see kind of how it flows so far. Gotta go hand in between the mic stand and the cable. Well, we're done. That was beautiful. Really good harmonization. No, I'm not going to do that. But if I was, let's say, improvising on the saxophone, this would be a line that I probably would play something of the likeness of over a chord like G minor 11. So you could do that. For the sake of this video, I want to show harmony that moves and pushes the melody. So I'm going to just keep that for the first 2 notes. So let me write that down first. Now, one kind of concept I didn't mention in the steps of this exercise is something called harmonic rhythm, which is essentially just the pace at which your chord progression moves. So this line that I made up has a very 8th note sound to it. So I'm going to assume that it's, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 or something kind of that nature. And I'm holding the first chord for 2 8th notes, so 1 beat. Now, generally, this is going to lead me to believe that the quarter note will kind of be the main pulse of our harmony. And that's not to say that you can't use, half notes or 8th notes. You totally can. It's just going to be dependent on your phrasing, I suppose. So 8th notes might make it feel like you're pushing your progression along. Half notes might feel like you're pulling back a little bit. And quarter notes might feel more like home bass. So I'm going to kind of keep that piece of context up here. That may or may not help you. It's something I've noticed over the years of writing music. That being said, let's go on to our second chord. Now, I'm going to start with a simple option of seeing what shapes are above and below my first chord. So my first chord is that G minor 11. Now I could easily go up to an A minor. I could go up to an F in first inversion. I could go to a B flat 7 even, major 7. Probably not. That's a little bit not my taste, really. So those are kind of our going up options that are mostly close to the first chord. Let's talk about options that go down. So I could go down to F or F major 7. I could go down to B flat major 7. I could go to D D minor 7. I kind of like that actually. Let me see how that sounds with the next two melody notes to see if I can kind of keep that quarter note harmonic rhythm. So we got... I might do a different voicing, but I like that, so... Yeah, I like that actually. So I'm going to do... Well, first, I'm going to add a note into my last voicing to make it kind of so they're all 4-note left-hand voicings. So I'm going to put another C in. For my A and D, I'm going to use the voicing... So... Yeah, I'm going to go A, C, D, F. So far, I have... So it sounds very modal right now. I'm not very strongly indicating that we're in the key of F yet, but I could definitely bring it towards that later on. Looking at our next two notes, I have C and A. I don't think I want to go to A minor. That is kind of nice though, because C to A is a minor third. It kind of has that sound baked into it at the most default. But I could also use those as the 5th and 3rd of an F major chord, or something more colorful like the 9 and 7 of a B flat major 7. So let me try out those options. This is G minor 7 to D minor 7 to A minor 7 first. Let me try that one. So... That's pretty nice. Let me try it to F. So G minor 7, D minor 7, F. It's a little too home basey for just getting started, so I'm going to forego that option for now. Let me try out a B flat major 7. I'm kind of between the A minor 7 and the B flat major 7. The A minor 7 is like a really moody direction so far, but the B flat major 7 is more, there's more like push to it. I feel like it's going somewhere already. So I'm going to start with that one. So I did F, A, B flat, D is my voicing. And I haven't yet put in like any slashes to indicate that it's like a voicing that's over a different root or inversion. What I think I might do is try that out at the end, because the chord's going to stay the same functionally. The bass line's kind of a different story. So I'm just going to focus on the core of my voicing at the moment. And you'll probably notice that like I'm not following perfect voice leading rules here because I just don't care. I want to do what sounds the best. So you're going to see like parallel fourths and fifths and things that like you'd have a finger wagged at you if you did it in an academic environment. But really, like, I've been around the block. I write music for my own project. I've written commercial music and I've played in a bunch of bands, and like no one really cares if it sounds good. So, or no one really cares as long as it sounds good, rather. So I'm going to kind of be ignorant to those rules. There's no harm in learning them, but I've learned them and I'm choosing not to use them. And I would encourage you to take a similar approach. Let's listen to what we have so far. Now I'm hearing the chord, the harmonic motion sort of go down after that B flat, so no. I'm hearing maybe doing a substitution or something more colorful here. I'm just gonna play for a second in San's narration and figure out what I have option-wise. what I think I'm going to use is a really colorful substitution choice. This comes from the parallel minor, and it's the minor 4 chord. So in this circumstance, it's a B flat minor. So I'm pulling that from F minor, but it's a closely related key, so it still sounds approximately in the same tonal center. Let me write out my voicing to show you what I mean. And I also noticed that I wrote this over one note, so I'm going to fix that as well. So I have G minor 7 to D minor 7 to B flat major 7 to B flat minor 6. Let me play that much for you. So like heading in a really nice direction right now. Now thinking about where B flat minor 6 can resolve to, there's a couple options that I would more often than not go to. One is the 1 chord, which is our F. The other one is the 3 chord, which is our A minor. So let me try, thinking about it, the F is not going to sound the best over A minor, but doing an F chord may be a good option. So let me try that out first. So I'm going to do G minor 7, D minor 7, B flat major 7, B flat minor 6 to some sort of F, maybe an F major 7 even. Yeah, that sounds beautiful. So I'm going to do not a 7th chord, just a regular old F triad. I might even do it in inversion, so the root motion works better, but let me just start by writing the notes out. Now that I have this F chord here, it's really highlighting that the A is sort of the apex of this melody. Da do do da do 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 da do da da da. So really the harmony should drive towards that final chord. I might even make it a bit more colorful so it has like really good landing power. Because so far this is really it's pointed towards this F, but I think I could create a small moment of tension to kind of push us into that final A. And the thing is, this could be like an intro of a song, it could be part of the verse, it could be a cadence, it could be part of the chorus, really whatever you wanted it to be. The idea with this exercise is just that we're making something. And the cool thing is the more you do this, the more you'll just develop a notebook full of a bunch of different sketches that might fit in a piece here or a piece there, or you might see how like 3 of them work well together and make a bigger piece out of it. What you're really doing is working on crafting a specific moment at its atomic level. So in this circumstance, I'm hearing it pointing towards that A. It might not do that once you put it into something else, but it's worth just figuring out in the moment. So I think what I might do is work backwards for a second and see what would be a good landing zone for that A chord. Now the first thought that I have is just because it's a voicing that I do all the time, and it's doing a B flat major 7 over C, which I would call C7 sus. And people call it jazz sus as well. It's this sound. You'll hear it in like half of the songs that I have published online and in like a ton of YouTube videos. So I'm going to kind of play through and just like fudge something right here. I might even just hold that F chord and see what it sounds like to land on a B flat major 7 over C at that end part. I'm going to write the voicing out as well. That's what I'm going to do. So I just put a passing diminished chord in here, and that leads me to a couple of options. So I mentioned this, I think, in a video before. Basically, you can precede any chord by its 5 chord, and it sounds nice. It's a thing that just like kind of invokes a cadence, really. And in this circumstance, you would precede a C7 kind of chord. It's a sus7, but it's still a C. You would precede that with a G7, so, which is a really juicy sound. It's a secondary dominant in the key of F. It's the 5 chord in the key of C, so it has like a close relationship with the key anyway, so it already fits really well within our tonality. I could do it as a regular dominant 7 chord, or I could use a diminished variation. So like G7 with a flat 9 invokes a diminished shape. So what that means is that I can use all of those diminished chords. So B diminished, D diminished, F diminished, and A flat diminished are all related diminished chords to G7. So like a B diminished would work here. So let me try side by side G7 to B flat over C, and then B diminished to B flat over C. Let me also write in that last chord symbol really quick. G7 to that voicing of B flat over C would be something like, which is very nice. A B diminished chord to a B flat over C would sound like this. Now, after listening to both of those, I think the diminished is just too colorful. It's a little too specific of a sound. And that's just not the mood that I'm feeling, in particular with this minor 6 chord. That's a more modern, kind of moody direction. So I want to stick with something a bit more stable, I suppose. So I'm going to do G7. Now, I'm just going to put in a voicing that is close enough to what it precedes and what follows, and I can kind of like make it better later. So I'm going to keep the F. I'm going to make the A go down to a G, and the C go to a B. So now we have G minor 7, D minor 7, B flat major 7, B flat minor 6, F major, G7 to B flat over C. Let's see how that whole thing sounds together. I love that. Let me go back for a second and see if I want to stick with the same root motion. The one place that I was considering changing it, and just a good rule of thumb in general, is just kind of like playing the roots on their own and seeing if it sounds like a cohesive idea or whether another note could replace something, and typically it'd be a chord tone. So that was a bad explanation, but let me just demonstrate it. So right now I have G, D, B flat, F, G, C. Now F, G, C is like perfect. Even the B flats preceding it are perfect. That just has very strong root motion, I guess. It sounds like the rest of it sounds. It moves at the same pace the rest of it sounds. The one that I'm not as convinced on is this D minor 7 over here. I think that should be over an A, so we get that chromatic, or stepwise motion rather, not chromatic, in the first 3 chords before we do some more jumpy kind of stuff. So that would be G, A, B flat, F, G, C. That sounds great to my ear. I only have so many fingers. I'm gonna record the voicings that I have and then overdub myself playing on the bass those root notes so you can hear what the full thing would sound like. Overall, I'm really happy with this. Got a lot of character in it, a lot of soul. This melody is the kind of thing that I would write in the first place, so it feels very authentic to my style. And the cool thing with this exercise is that you can really make it your own. You can pick the kind of chords and qualities that you like and evoke whatever kind of mood and emotion you're going for. It's really just a framework for organizing your ideas, I suppose. So yeah, give it a try. If you have any questions after watching all of that, or even just questions about my specific harmonization, go ahead and leave them in the comments and I will do my best to, answer any questions or give any guidance where I can. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you dearly. If you got some value out of this piece, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or if you try this exercise, leave a comment down below and let me know how it goes. And if you want this kind of a thing delivered directly to you, consider becoming a subscriber. Thanks again for watching. I will see you very soon.